be a video showing how to stop smashers in an SSD with traps. Now, I know there's a way, there are many ways obviously with weapons to stop smashers, and that's pretty easy, and I'll probably put a little clip in to illustrate that. But if you want to stop them with traps, either for an SSD or Endurance or maybe Frost Snipe, I'm about to show you, I think, some pretty good ways to do that. Though I haven't found a 100% sure. I found 99.9% sure, but not 100. And I'm going to kind of start from the beginning, so if this is something you already know, disregard it or fast forward. So smashers in particular have a special set of rules in regard to how they behave with traps that apply impact. And impact traps are the ones that are going to cause them to get pushed around. The difference between impact and knockback is impact is a value, a number that each husk has, and you have to do X amount of impact before you see any kind of effect take place. And for regular husks, almost everything in the game currently, under the current rule set, can be punched around with, and I'm just going to go to the trap to make it easy. So they can get punched around with a double reload, full durability trap. You don't even need any impact perks, impact or knockback perks. So I'll show one that does have impact and knockback. And I'll go ahead to the stats in case you're new, and you get an idea what I'm looking at. So we have an impact value of 48,929 on this particular trap, the knockback value of 2,688, and on the other one we have only 15, well, let's call it 16,000 impact and 1,536 knockback. So this trap I'm moused over now is going to do obviously less impact, can be less capable of making the knockback effect take place, and that knockback effect will not knock them back as far. I'm not going to go into distances with any husk tonight besides smashers, because I think at this point the rest of it is kind of irrelevant, unless you just want to have fun punching little guys as far as you can for entertainment purposes, or maybe you got to get them 2 tiles over to get them off the edge of a cliff and there's some lava or the edge of the map. Then go with something like this, which was full impact and knockback, or maybe one reload, put some knockback on it. I mean, the little ones are super easy to punch around. But really, I would say at this game that the impact isn't even that important until you get to some extraordinarily high level husks. I haven't dialed that in 100% perfect, except in the case of wall lights, and I will be illustrating that a little bit later in the video. So anyway, this is wall launchers, and you use wall launchers to move husks, and specifically I want to talk about moving smashers. I gotta move this because I want to do a little timeout room. I don't have enough room there. I was being a dummy, so let's go over here. Okay, so I'm just building a hypothetical timeout room. So for the uninitiated timeout room, you're just going to throw a launcher there, which I will do just for illustrative purposes. Pretend the husks are walking from this direction. They come up here, they get booped by that guy, they land in here, and you can throw an assortment of traps in here, in which case they get hit by all the traps you've deployed. And then they're going to recover and try to walk out of here and head out here. Now, smashers a while ago had the rules changed with how they behave when you smack them with a launcher. And it wasn't just smacking them with a launcher, it's any trap that potentially does impact damage. So used to be you could toss a smasher just like you could toss the little ones. Anybody who started the game recently may have noticed when you hit a smasher with something like this, they only move approximately a half tile, maybe a little more. I don't think it's really super important to be particular about that. But the fact is, if you don't put these walls here, and a smasher comes walking a little bit towards the left-hand side of this trap. When he gets hit, he's only going to get bonked to like somewhere in here. Typically, it will not be enough to push him into the timeout room. Can mediate that by building a wall like that, and these the other version of that sort of quarter wall. That one does the same thing. Either of these two walls will work as far as forcing a smasher over to this side and getting him into this room, so you can have an opportunity at least to hit him with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more traps than you would have. Well, I guess it'd be only 2 more traps, right? Because if we didn't put this here, we would have put a floor trap, we would have put a wall trap, we would have put a wall trap, and we would have put a ceiling trap. So really, you're only gaining a trap or 2, and you are gaining some time. You're making him stay in the tunnel, away from your amp a little bit longer. And stick with me. I'm going on this sort of detailed little rant slash story slash classroom lesson, because I'm coming to a point here. There's going to be a denouement or a finale, and I'm kind of sharing with you my learning experience in the game the last year, and specifically the last month. So I had the last 2 years the developers have made numerous changes to how weapons work and heroes work and traps work and monsters behave. Everything was total chaos, right? And I had built Twine Endurance to a point where it would function, and I felt it was immune to whatever the developers might do in regard to, say, trying to stop AFK builds or try to stop exploits and all that. So I had sort of a non-exploit, no strange pathing, gave them all a straight line straight to my amp. I didn't block them off hardly anywhere. I had a ton of tire traps, and my endurance was good to go. And I just left it that way because I knew there were changes coming, and I think, at least for now, that's done. So a month ago, I tore this whole thing down to the dirt and started over, and I really started going after the traps and like, how can I do the most damage, and how can I hopefully kill smashers a little more efficiently without sort of making an AFK scenario or sky bridges and all that fun stuff. I just wanted to kill them with trap damage, basically in a straight line from the spawn to the amp. That was the game I was playing. I know not everybody's into that, and I think a lot of newer players are going to end up doing that anyway, because it's not in the scope of their imagination or game experience yet to say to themselves, oh, hey, I can build this sky bridge back here, and I can have them wandering around the lava and all this other fun stuff people do. And anyway, that's what I was after. So I started out with stuff like this. I was just taking a smasher. He's getting to here. He gets booped in here. He triggers this and takes that damage and then moves forward. And the trouble with SSDs in particular, and also endurance, especially in Twine, is the power level of the smashers gets to be high enough where you start to run out of territory to build this scenario, if you have it at all. For instance, over at Devil Amp, it can be difficult even to get them in a position where they're going to go into a timeout room, or even have you don't even have really a scenario in some parts of that map over there. You don't even have a scenario where you're able to get them to go into a timeout room consistently. So this was working okay, but I would say it started to fail in past wave 22, 23, 24, depending on the random waves. Depending on what I got, it started to let me down a little bit in that the smashers were getting through, and I had to, use analog method to delete them, which is fine. I kind of was on a mission. Can I do this with traps? And then I had a happy accident. I was over here at the pit down there, and I happened to be looking right about there on that particular day. I was about wave 25, 6. I think it was a random wave 26 popped over there, elemental smashers. And I saw a smasher fall down off of that, and he came here. He took a step here, and he got knocked back. Except I hadn't purposely built anything there to knock him back. And I was like, what did I just do? So the rest of this video, I just want to attribute it. Mostly, I'm kind of a dummy, and I got lucky seeing something, and it kind of went from there. So what I had seen was what I did have there was a broadside. Specifically, this broadside. Can slow the video down if you want to look at the perks. It's double crit damage, double crit chance, which I don't recommend. Usually you wouldn't really want. It was kind of a specialty trap. I wouldn't say you want to be slinging these everywhere. But if you look at the trap schematic, I have a decent impact chance or impact value, right? 1,919. Now what it doesn't say is I believe that's per cannonball. And let's look at the trap again, like in game. And what you see is like we got 3 cannons, right? Boom, boom, boom. When this thing fires, the first cannon shot comes out of here. Next one's there. Next one's there. Next one's there. And next one's there. Why does that matter? It doesn't. It doesn't matter in 99% of the game. It doesn't matter till you get to Twine. It doesn't matter till you get sort of extraordinarily high level smashers. And specifically smashers. It doesn't matter if you got some little baby house coming in here. Oops, I'm lagging out. I'm going to have to edit that. When a smasher walks in here, obviously he's going to get hit by that. It can't miss. He might get hit by that one, okay? That one's definitely going to miss. Unless he walks in here at full speed. There is a 1 second arming delay, so the trap is going to sense his presence when he gets to here. And there's going to be a second delay. So he is going to be able to traverse to approximately the midpoint of the tile if you haven't got anything to slow him down. Like bare naked tile, pretty much what I got here, or damage trap. So you can get almost all the cannonballs to hit if you do not slow a smasher. So that's my first tip. If you're going to use broadside, do not put a floor spike on the prior tile. Because I believe that slows him down 30%, and it's going to not... you'll get lucky sometimes and get these 2 to hit, but you're definitely not going to get that one to hit. And if you put Ice King on top of that and support, say, with a further 15% slowing, or stand over here and shoot him with some kind of weapon with a slowing effect on it, all that's going to stack and slow him way down, which is actually to your detriment in this case. I didn't realize all this about broadside until I really started trying to watch what happened. So anyway, back to what I saw over here with the smasher getting staggered from that square to this square. I had the broadside right there. But what had happened was he came in here and he got tagged probably by these 2. And again, we'll go back to that schematic. Impact value, I'm just going to call it 2,000. It's 1919, but for the sake of speaking, I'm going to say 2,000. I did a little more video shooting of broadsides to sort of try and discern exactly what's happening when a broadside fires. And I won't take this, to the Council of Universal Scientists, but you will get a hit from a cannonball about 8 times per cannonball if you have another wall right here to bounce. That first cannonball is going to hit the target that comes in here about 8 times. It's going to hit the wall approximately there. It's going to bounce about there to the midpoint. At that point, it comes down to the floor. And then you're going to go boom, 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 boom 5 times. And the cannonball is going to disappear. So each shot from the cannonball is good for 5 hits on a husk. I'm going to go back to the schematic. And back to our 2,000 impact value. So what's really happening is if that cannonball comes in there and you got a wall to bounce off of, you can say 2,000 times 8. It's doing about 16,000 impact, assuming all 8 of the ricochets hit the smasher. Okay? And we can further multiply that depending on how many individual cannons we think are going to hit the target. So back to the firing order. When they walk into this trap, that fires first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So if you can put a smasher right where I'm standing, and this trap goes off, he's definitely going to get hit by 4 separate cannon shots. So now we're talking like 40,000 impact instead of 10. And this is what happened to me over there on that other amp. And at that point, you will stagger whatever is here pretty much until you get to pretty high level. Like I'm going to say high 400, power level high 400, low 500. This scenario I'm showing you is going to start to fail because the smashers are that strong. Now, I didn't have a double wall here. What I had was that, more or less. I hadn't set it up as a timeout room, but it's a similar scenario. So in that case, because the cannonballs are traveling twice as far, we could cut the number of impact strikes or cannonball strikes in half, because the cannonballs are traveling literally twice as far. And I think they're on it's a time scenario. It's not about the bounces. So at this point, you're down to maybe 2 or 3 hits per cannonball, which is still going to net, 6,000 instead of 10-ish. Let's just kind of ballpark it. And if I can get these 2 to hit, we're still looking at like 24,000 impact. And I'm not super precise about that. I don't intend to break it down to an exact science. All you got to know is if you put this trap up, it will stagger smashers in any kind of reasonable content. With these little walls up, it will stagger them enough to put them in this room. And it will fire the traps. They don't go in very far, but they go in far enough to trigger whatever you put in here. So my next step was, well, I can't get them all the way in the room. But what I can do is put up some dynamo, because dynamos kind of don't care about where you are compared to where the damage is dealt. So if I come in here and trigger this, I'm going to get hit by the 2 dynamos. There's no negotiating about it. They're both going to strike me, and it's a good hit. Whereas, if I were to put the broadside back in here, because we only staggered them just barely in here, we're looking at maybe only this cannon being able to hit the target. If we're lucky, that one will. But we're looking at maybe only getting 20% or 40% of the potential damage from the broadside. Whereas with the dynamo, I'm getting all of it. And the safe bet back here is a wall dart, because they have only a 6-second cooldown, and you can escape. There is a tiny little window here where a husk can stand, and they can trigger the trap, and that dart will miss, but it's very small. So there is a tiny chance a husk could get punched in here and be like in the broadside, basically, trigger the dart, and it'll miss. But with a smasher, that's not going to happen. Smasher's body is too big. Even if he's toward this side of the trap, we're at least going to get a couple of hits off of the dart, and if we're lucky, I've seen up to 4 of these hit, and the dart trap is similar to the broadside in that the damage you see on your stats page is per dart. So right here where it says damage 60,000, so that's per dart. If I can get 4 of them to hit, we're talking about 250,000, 240,000 damage. If I can get some crits, now we're talking, right? We could be pushing 1 million if we get lucky. I have seen with a full group. Now these numbers will go up when you got 4 people in a group. Well, I'm solo right now, so they're kind of small. I believe I have seen repeatedly my wall darts hitting for close to 2 million. So that indicates to me, number one, I have 4 people in the group, so I'm getting a lot of bonus to damage, and that indicates to me also multiple hits. And I just kind of want to throw that at you so you understand how the trap works. So I prefer darts on the back wall. Plus, if it happens to be somebody comes through here and that thing's on cooldown and they don't get punched in here, we're still going to get the dart shot. because that guy's on a 6-second cooldown plus 1 second arming, and this guy's on about 12 seconds. Let's call it 13 seconds because you got arming. So I got a window while this guy's resetting. At least this one can fire and help everybody out. And that worked reasonably well. And I guess the big test is wave 15 for endurance, and Twine is going to be down there, and it's a smasher wave. And then wave 25 UFO is also a smasher wave. So I tested all these little goofy things I'm showing you down there repeatedly, and I will splice in the clips of that during my talk here when I go to video editing. And timing started to matter, because obviously if I want this thing to hit super hard, kind of what you might call burst damage as opposed to consistent, running damage, I started out trying, the double crit rating, double crit damage like I had talked about earlier, no reload. And at that point you're looking at 13 seconds, I think, total. So we got arming delay 1 second, reload time 12 seconds, yeah. And I also reperked some other ones during this experiment. So here there would be a double reload, and you're able to get the reload time plus arming delay down to 7.5. So we're like, what, 60% of the other trap? Almost firing twice as fast, not quite. But that is a huge sacrifice of damage, because the only way to do that is to get rid of pretty much all your damage perks. All I can squeeze in at that point is like flat damage and critical rating, which is good enough probably to kill any husk in the game except a smasher. Like, there's nothing wrong with this trap. If you want to sling these at a regular mission, I highly recommend it. Your reload time's cut in half. It's going to murder almost everything anyway. So go ahead and use them. And then I also experimented with single reload, which if you want to do a DPS calculation and assume the trap can fire every second and just keep firing over and over and over, this is the winner, right? This is the default roll for every damage trap in the game, based on kind of analyzing it from a damage per second perspective. You want to go basically one of each perk. You want to go damage, one crit damage, one crit rating, one reload speed, put some heals on the end, whatever you want to do there, not that important. And we're stuck to physical, can't do anything with that. And so I built trap tunnels that look like what I just showed you, and I put these various variations of the broadside up to kind of get a gauge for how effective they would be. And I also messed around with the traps in here in a similar fashion. So obviously I was trying to sync up the timing of my traps with this guy. If this guy was 13 seconds, then so were my dynamos, right? And I did do broadside also, despite my recommendation not to do that, unless you can get them in here halfway. And they do get in there sometimes. Like, if you get lucky and a smasher comes in here and he gets shot by that, he is going to stagger in here enough that you're going to get the full kaboom out of your 3 cannonballs. But I was kind of searching for consistency, and I found that the single reload situation, which put us at 8.5 seconds, gave me the best results on wave 15 and wave 25 down there at the what is that called, the valley amp, I'm sorry. Anyway, UFO waves, smasher waves, that worked out pretty good. But that kind of got me inspired. I was like, well, okay, I like the cannonball because that's a push trap that does damage in addition to pushing. Like, your wall launcher is cool, it pushes, but doesn't do any damage. Your wall lights are cool, they push, but they don't do any damage. Despite that, I went ahead and ran a series of tests where I did make this a wall launcher. And I moved on from that because I kind of already knew what the wall launcher was going to do, and I just did that to verify it, so I don't need to bore that with you. Probably most people that watch this are or have used wall launchers, so I didn't feel like I needed to do a lot there, and instead I went with the wall light. I started slapping these bad boys up there just for giggles. I was like, well, I don't really expect them to work better. Maybe they work better. I don't know. Maybe they don't. And it turns out I pretty much got identical results. Long story short. Whether I put the broadside up there, or I put the wall light up there, or I put the wall launcher up there, as far as shoving a smasher into this room, I'm pretty much seeing the same thing. What the wall light did show me is that smashers are immune to knockback effects for about 3 seconds after you have triggered their impact threshold. So, that sounds all complicated, but the bottom line is, if this wall light's got enough oomph, impact, to cause him to get knocked back into here, that smasher is immune for 3 seconds from any other impact damage I had in here. Why does that matter? And why did I notice it? Well, that guy right there, if it were a broadside, would have the opportunity to re-stagger or re-stun or push again the smasher, right? So we could hit him from this side, get him shoved in here. Now we hit him with that thing, and he's gonna go and kind of bounce around back to this corner. But that's not what happens because they're immune. That doesn't mean that has to be a broadside. That could be another wall light. It could be another wall launcher. Any trap that does impact doesn't matter. They're kind of like immune to it. Now I don't know, technically speaking, that is exactly what is happening. All I can tell you is my efforts to chain any kind of light or wall launcher or broadside effects beyond damage failed, because after the first one, nothing happens. That has some repercussions for you. One of the more popular traps in the game is the floor freeze. I'm just going to throw a 160 here because this is just for illustrative purposes. You know, if this is a 130, whatever. So this becomes a problem with high-level smashers. I'm going to say higher-level smashers. I started seeing this happen. You can actually see this happen in the 160s versus a PL 250 smasher. The smasher will come in here and trigger both these traps. And it gets to be pretty random whether you see the freeze effect or not. The freeze trap will trigger. Definitely, you'll see it go off. But the light, or the broadside, or the wall launcher that you have here, there's a bunch of different things that can happen. Say this is all timed right, so the freeze goes off first, and you actually freeze the husk. You'll see the wall launcher trigger, and it'll knock the freeze effect off of the husk, the smasher. And I want to reiterate, you can't even see this on the smaller husks. And I think, first of all, it's because they don't have this immunity effect going on. And second of all, a lot of times you're going to pair this with a damage trap, and they're already dead before you can even conduct this experiment. Irrelevant. Anyway. So the bottom line there was, like, if I put a broadside here, I was seeing the same thing. It was knocking the freeze off of the husks and the smashers in particular. And maybe I'll put a video clip of that in as well. Now, I'm not telling you that it does not work. Sometimes the timing is correct. Like, this smasher will get frozen despite the light going off, and you'll get the effect from the freeze that you were hoping for. But it was rare enough for me, especially when I got to the higher level smashers, that I was like, this doesn't work. You don't want to put a freeze trap with a wall light, or a freeze trap with a wall launcher, or a freeze trap with a broadside, even if you're looking for the damage boost, because it looks to me like they're getting knocked out of the freeze, and you're not even getting the damage boost from them being frozen, because they're not frozen anymore. So no more freeze traps for me. And at that point, I got curious. I was like, well, wait a second. I know they're immune to impact, and so I can't get any kind of chain stagger going. And the reason I want to do that is I'm trying to slow the smashers down, prevent them from coming through the tunnel, stop them, giving my traps an opportunity to reset so I get a second hit. So even with this scenario where you boop them in here, they're going to come out of the stun in 3 seconds and usually be able to escape the tile before your traps reset, even on a 6-second timer. So the real goal here from the beginning was, can I get my traps to reset and at least fire twice on one smasher? And all that messing around I did, I was not finding a solution to that problem due to the impact, what I perceived to be the immunity impact for 3 seconds. And that led me to trying all kinds of stuff. At that point, I just went kind of random, and I was like, well, do things you never did before, right? And that led me throwing a tar trap in here. Let's see what the tar trap does, right? I tried this configuration with all manner of traps in here, and this kind of works, but it's still not perfect. But what did happen is this: the husk gets to here, Smasher gets to here. You boop him into the tar. He's stunned for 3 seconds. When he comes out of that, he's going to try to walk back here. And that led to me going, well, what happens if I have another tar trap? And that's kind of where things got cool. Okay, so here's the scenario. A Smasher walks here. He gets stuck in the tar, which is not an impact strike, apparently. He gets booped by the light, and that puts him here with a 3-second stun. He comes out of the stun and walks where? Into the other tar trap. This is a 3-second, not stun, but he's stuck for the 3 seconds in the tar. At that point, we're into the window where we can get our timing low enough on a trap, 6 seconds, to have that light reset and hit him again. So I'm just going to run this scenario one more time. Keep it in mind that this guy here's got a 6-second reset, plus 1 second rearm, 7 if you want to be typical, if you want to be perfect. So we're into the mud. The light goes off. We get shoved into this mud, and that guy's resetting. The husk at this point is stunned for approximately 3 seconds from the wall light, and then takes a step to try to get out of this tile, and he's into more tar and hung up for 3 seconds. And guess what? That gave that time to reset. And I will show you that trap. Okay, it's this one, not the first one I moused over. And let's look at the perks. And it's not that complicated. I got 2 reload, rest, impact. Effect duration is super important. You need the 3 seconds to hold them to get this all to work out right. I think down here I had durability. So originally I had 2 impact, 2 reload, 1 durability, and the effect duration. And I want to tell you that that trap works fine versus all smashers in the game until they hit about power level 525. In order to see power level 525, I think you're going to have to be on Endurance and Twine, and you're going to have 3 or 4 people start the mission with you, so it's at the maximum or second maximum most difficulty available, if that makes sense. If you're on single player, if you're on 2 player, they don't even get that high level. So you can do impact twice, reload twice, durability once, and then effect duration. So the only variable here is whether you have an extra durability perk or not. Once they hit 525, I could no longer get this wall light to shove a smasher 1 hit. I had to go and up the impact, and we'll look at that number. 53,270 is what it took to get a 525 smasher to get moved over a half a tile by a wall light on the first hit. And then that trap functioned until the end of 4-player endurance, or functioned well enough. It's possible it fails north of 600, but I really don't care because it got endurance done. And if somebody wants to look into that, great. I don't know the exact numbers, and frankly, I don't care. I'm kind of guy like, try it if it works. Okay, cool. I don't really care why it worked. I don't know if I have one of these with 2. No, Oh, that's max impact right there. Let me look here. If I can find one with one less durability, I can sort of give you some impact numbers to work with, because I know that functioned until power level 525 with one less impact, and I don't have one. I think it's about 48,000. I'm going from memory. If you roll this with durability instead of one impact perk, you're going to be at like 48, 45, something like that. Is it that important? I don't know. If it is, I think I gave you enough information to pursue it if you feel like you need to do that. So I was a little bit put off because you can see I have max trap durability survivors, right? Everyone you can have. So even under that scenario, I only have 70 durability. If we put that into like, how many times can I fire this trap? In terms of time, you're looking at like 10 minutes. So 10 minutes of wave time in this event, and that trap's gone. That's not hard to have happen, especially if this is the first wall light in your tunnel, because some of the waves in endurance can be like 4.5, 5 minutes. So you're looking at a scenario where this trap toward the end potentially only lasts a wave and a half. So to make this work, you have to double it up, or triple it up, or quadruple it up. And I'm gonna quick rebuild a little trap tunnel here. Instead of trying to shove them into a timeout room, I went a different route, because now I'm like, wait a second, I can stop a smasher, more or less. I'm just going to build that quick. I need a little spot here with 4x4. So this ends up being a 4x4 trap tunnel, which is pretty big, so I don't think it's like super practical for regular missions. But as far as endurance and SSDs are concerned, is beautiful. I'm just gonna jump down here, kind of looking for a little more open area here. Here, this will be perfect. We'll pretend they're coming up out of here, right? What I'm gonna do is throw down four floor tiles. I'm gonna give them an entry point right here, so, and we'll block this off just for illustrative purposes. And I'm just going to build the most boring trap tunnel ever. This has been around since the game started, right? Nothing fancy here, no crazy edits. This is like the go-to trap tunnel. Simplest trap tunnel you can build. You might put sound wall right there to get the propane to drop, and then you're going to go puncher right here. You're going to go puncher right there. You can continue that. You can do another puncher. Another puncher, and God forbid something actually makes it here, they're going to exit. Unlikely at best, but that's the concept. So what I did, instead of the wall launchers, I went lights. Right? Light. And then we're going to tar the floor. I'm just going to throw 160s because this is just for illustration. I don't think it matters one bit. Especially with tar, I don't think there's like any threshold or anything. You could probably use like super low level traps. I mean, tar is tar. Doesn't even matter. So now we got this scenario. Smasher comes in, the light goes off here, he gets knocked back. He kind of stumbles around for 3 seconds and says, all right, I'm coming to wreck your house. Usually they're going to try to cut this corner. They're going to be more like here. Eventually, he's going to get to a point where he crosses this threshold and gets into this tar. Triggers that light, which knocks him back, stuns him for 3 seconds. When he comes out of it, he's going to step in this tar, stops him for 3 seconds, and right about the time he takes a step here, boom, that light goes off again, and we repeat the loop. There are some things that can mess this up. Number one is multiple smashers coming at once, which is exactly the scenario down there for anybody who's run the UFO wave or run the smasher wave, wave 15, miss pods. You're going to have a bunch of smashers coming in here. So here's what happens. The first smasher in triggers all this and kind of makes it slightly irrelevant. The magic happens with the second, third, or fourth guy is going to get to here. He's going to step in this. That's going to trigger. He's stuck back here, and boom, he's stuck in the loop. I have not seen him get past the third tile with this scenario. The one thing that will for sure mess it up is a healer coming through. But that's got not much to do with the timing. Once I knew I could loop him, I was like, all right, now I got to kill him. I got all kinds of stuff in here to stop him, but we're not really killing the smashers, which was my goal from the start. So I said, well, I could put a dynamo there, I could put a dart there, I could put a broadside there. The broadside for me was out of the question because I did not want a high impact trap disrupting the sequence of events. Remember I said smashers appear to be immune to impact for approximately 3 seconds after you've broken their threshold, right? So, okay, no broadsides. And then, well, that kind of leaves dynamo or dart. Or dynamo and dart.